your brain will naturally go towards things that feel good. That should make common sense. As you probably know, you are playing video games, you're drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, taking drugs, fucking girls, because that feels good to you. This is a scientific term. It's called dopamine. It's a kind of hormone signal to your brain that this kind of feel good feeling. But this is not like fucking scientific term, right? But dopamine is also about the persuasion of the goal. Now let me explain that. You do something, you do anything because your brain sees some potential progress in it, and that progress gives you dopamine. What I mean by that, okay, let's take an example of video games. When we take CSGO for example, because that's what I used to play a lot. When we take that and we want to get to global elite, the highest rank, bullshit, then we get an intrinsic motivation to achieve that, to achieve global elite. But the process there is gonna feel much better than once you actually get there. Because once you actually get there, you won't really care, right? You won't really give a fuck about reaching global elite once you reach it. The way your brain works, okay, let me explain it in a whiteboard. So what we have to understand here is that we have you. This is you, right? And then you are gonna do a bunch of shit. For example, okay, so we have here CSGO, we have work, we have alcohol, and fucking drugs, and a family. These are not so similar, but the process here, you want to achieve that, you want to achieve a global elite here, and this thinking about this is gonna give you motivation, so it's dopamine, right? But achieving that goal is actually not gonna be the motivation itself, but the way you get here. This is the important here, because making process towards this is what gonna give you the dopamine, right? So it's gonna be really important that this is the actual shit that you are gonna give you dopamine. Your brain won't actually care about the fucking global elite, right? Because why would it? It just cares about making process towards something. The trick part here is that we can have multiple sources of dopamine, right? Your brain, this is your fucking brain, your brain will naturally gravitate towards the easiest stuff, right? Because it wants to give that sense of importance the fastest way and the easiest way, because your brain is fucking lazy, right? Why this is important to understand is because if you, obviously people differ, but if you are similar to me, then this is you again. Then having multiple easy sources of dopamine is gonna take away the energy you have to work on the shit that you need to work on. For example, if I have any bad habits present, the easy dopamine, bad diet, video games, alcohol, anything present, then the work itself that I want to do is gonna be nearly impossible, because all of my dopamine is gonna go towards the easy shit and not towards the hard shit. Now, let me explain that in a kind of not so bro science way. Okay, so we have two parts of the brain here that are gonna be important. One is your amygdala, let's call that just the lizard part of your brain, and we have your neocortex, but it doesn't matter, let's call it the logical one. Okay, so let me start with the logical one. The logical one is responsible for the goals you have. For example, reaching global elite in a fucking video game, or making $1,000. That is somewhat more understandable. So the point here is that your logical brain is responsible for the goals and the deliberate decisions to make towards that goals, but it has very limited willpower. Your logical brain is basically acting out on willpower. It does shit because it has willpower, but obviously it's trainable, so you can train your willpower to have more willpower, right? But it's not gonna be endless, right? Now, your lizard brain doesn't care about any of this shit. It only cares about the dopamine, following the trail of dopamine. But it has an infinite fucking amount of motivation to do so. Why this is important is because if you can connect your work to your dopamine, then we have an infinite amount of motivation and willpower, and we won't have to depend on the limited logical motivation, right? But it's complicated. It's not as easy as it sounds. So how do we actually do that? We basically want to tie our social value and our chances of survival to our given work. Actually making progress in that work, not the outcome. Why this is important is because, as we discussed earlier, once you achieve that outcome, once you achieve that goal, for example, reaching fucking global elite again, I'm gonna use this example, then your brain will not fucking care about it anymore, and you are gonna stop doing the work and make regress on the process you have made. And that's not gonna be fucking good, right? Because if we want to make $1,000, and once we reach $1,000, obviously we don't want to stop. We didn't just make money on a side quest. We wanted to make money because we want to have money, right? We want to have freedom. We want to have the ability to provide. So, anyways, we don't want to stop with the work that we are doing to achieve that goal. So what we want to do is tie our social value again and chances of survival, to the making process. So instead of make $1,000, we want to have the ability to make $1,000 and more. This is really important because, as we discussed earlier, your brain doesn't tie dopamine towards the goals. It may seem like it, but it doesn't actually exist that way. It ties dopamine to the process of making the money. The process is really fucking important, so tie your values to making process in that goal. So how do we actually do that? How do we actually tie it towards survival and making it your social value, basically? First, I'm gonna start with the social value. The way you want to do this is pretty straightforward. You want to join a network of people where your status is increased by the fact of making process in that goal. What I mean by that is, you can pretty much join communities where, for example, a community of content creators, and when you achieve, for example, 1,000 subscribers, your social value is gonna be higher, right? Because that community, that network of people is gonna care about subscribers if you join YouTubers. When you go to the party scene, for example, if your goal is to fuck as many girls as you can, then those bitches really care about Instagram followers, for example. So you want to have a lot of Instagram followers. By the way, I'm not recommending you do this because it's kind of soulless. It will make you a shell of a man that you are not supposed to be, really. And I think it's really toxic in the modern world that we have all these casual sex hookups. And I'm not recommending you do that, but if you want to do that, you can do it by tying your social value to the amount of Instagram followers that you have, and that you will get dopamine if you are making new followers follow you, obviously, and that is gonna contribute to your goal of having casual sex. By the way, I'm not recommending this again. So the point is that you want to tie your status towards things that you make, that will make process on your goals. Now that is somewhat straightforward, but how do we do it with survival? Fuck. How do we do it with survival? Kind of want to burn your bridges. Obviously, I'm not fucking recommending you to do anything really stupid, but we see a lot of successful guys quitting college and quitting their job in order to make shit happen. I'm just gonna draw a fucking bridge here, and then it's gonna be on fire, so you can fuck, so you can kind of get what I'm talking about here. For example, there was a guy, you know, back in the ancient Greece, when he was a military leader, you know, a general basically, and what they did was really shocking, because they burned all of their boats that they could have escaped on. Basically, they could have saved their military forces, but this general gave the command to burn basically all of the boats that were around. Why this was important is because it made the soldiers fight 100 times harder, because unless they won, they were going to die, right? So it actually made them win regardless of the fact that they were really overpowered. In real life, the modern example for this is, for example, I really used to watch UFC a lot, and they had John Jones. Dan, you probably know it because he's really famous, right? He managed to get into UFC basically after training for 9 months, because his wife, you know, his girlfriend got pregnant, and he had to make shit happen in order for his family to survive, basically. I'm not recommending you get a girl pregnant, right? And he was using that as a motivation to work. But just really think about it. What if your girlfriend is pregnant, but you don't know it? Would you fucking lay around and not do shit? Would you play video games? Would you not do the work because it feels uncomfortable? Fuck no. You have a small human being to provide for, and you will have to make his life better, and it's entirely your responsibility. If he comes out as a millionaire or a drug addict, would you really fucking play video games for 2 hours a day, or 1 hour a day, for 30 minutes a day? Would you just lay around and not do anything? I highly doubt that. So by kind of tying your survival and your offspring's survival to the work that you do, the process that you make in your work, you are gonna achieve the infinite motivation, basically, that your lizard brain can give you. But we will have a few problems here. The first one is, obviously, I said that, but we have you here, and you will gravitate towards the instant ways of dopamine, because it's instant, and your brain really sucks at thinking long term. So we will have a computer here that's supposed to be a fucking computer. Looks like more of a foreskin of a fucking dick, but it doesn't matter. So we have alcohol here, and we have drugs here, and we have the work here. If you have all of these present, then your brain will naturally gravitate towards these and not the work, because the way your brain works, as I said countless times, it will want the easy dopamine. So what you have to understand is that you can't really have those present if you are trying to do the work, because not only these are gonna zap your energies to work on the actual work that you have to do to make process in something that you care, but it's also gonna consume your thoughts. For example, the metaphor I like using is, we have a shower here. It looks like a fucking weird shower, and we have you here. And if your shower thoughts are about video games, are about going out with your friends or taking drugs or just anything that is instant gratification basically, then you are not gonna be obsessed with your work, understandably, because your shower thoughts are not about the work. Your thoughts are consumed by the fact that you can do these instant gratification things, right? So what we must do is we must cut out all of these shit, and it's gonna be fucking painful, because your brain is gonna basically feel like you're dying because you are not having these instant waves of dopamine, and you're somewhat gonna feel depressed. You're not gonna be actually depressed, but you're gonna feel the emotional pain of having to go through dopamine detox, and it's gonna be painful, especially in the first week or so. But after you cut out this shit basically, then you are gonna summon up the infinite motivation to do the work, and you will only want to do the work because that's literally the only thing that you have present. And by the way, that doesn't necessarily need to be work. That could be working out, that could be reading, that could be learning, that could be studying, that could be fucking raising your kids, that could be anything that your logical brain has set as a goal, and the goal here is really important. Why that is important? Because it's one of the primary sources of input that you have here. So let me explain. Your brain basically works as a computer, like it's a fucking nerdy fucking sciencey shit, but let me explain. We have inputs here, we have the process that your body processes, the input itself, and we have the output. And then we are gonna have the output as a reinforcer of input. So it's basically gonna be response or reinforce or anything that you wanna call it. And the main input that we are gonna have here, if we are not counting the output here, because in order to have the output you have to take the action. So the main input that we are gonna have is goals, and also we are gonna have sleep, and we are gonna have the food that you eat, and the water you drink, and all of these things. Not to say that these are not important, but the main one is gonna be the goals, because you can have the perfect diet and the perfect sleep, but if you don't have a direction to go towards, then you are obviously not gonna take the action necessary to reinforce it to be an input. So we have goals, we need goals. We need to set your goals with the logical brain, with what you actually need, and I want you to spend a lot of time on this, because obviously you have to love your goal, you have to love the person that you're becoming, because if you don't, then how the fuck are you gonna take the necessary actions, right? But if we have shitty goals, if we have mediocre goals, if we don't have anything to work towards, anything higher than ourselves, I really like this concept, then we are not gonna feel the motivation to do so, because it's gonna be easy. And regardless of the fact that it's easy, we are not gonna take action on it. So that could be problematic, that will be problematic. So I want you to set the goals so huge. That's goofy. Okay. So we want to set a goal that is so huge that you will not really have to align all of your life basically with it to make it happen. For example, I have a really good metaphor here, not metaphor, but an example here from Charlie Morgan, who I view as a role model for myself, because he's a great guy. So he has the goal of becoming a millionaire, a billionaire actually. Naturally, he has to align all of his life for it to make it happen, because obviously if you're trying to become a millionaire, you can't really compromise your brain with smoking, with eating junk food, because you naturally have to give your 100% in every area of life in order to achieve this huge milestone, which not a lot of people did, obviously, and not a lot of people continue to do, because it's hard, right? If it was easy, everybody would fucking do it. So we want to set a goal so huge that we get the motivation to fix everything in our lives that will contribute to it, but we don't have we don't want to have a goal so large that we wouldn't really take action on it. So we want to have reasonably unreasonable goals to work towards. We want it to be unreasonable because we want to get huge goals, as I explained, but we still want it to be reasonable because unless it's reasonable, unless you can see a way of giving your 100% and achieving it, you are not gonna take action on it because it's gonna be so unreachable to have it. For example, if I were to say that I want to make $5 billion next year, how the fuck am I gonna do it, right? I don't make any money yet. How the fuck? It seems so illogical to make this shit happen because I'm not there yet. yet. So, but making $100 in throughout the summer, that is way more fucking reasonable because it's still unreasonable because I don't earn any money, so it would be a billion fucking percent growth, right? Because if you multiply 0 by anything, then you're gonna get 0. So I have to get from 0 to 1, basically. And it's gonna be hard, right? But it's still reasonably unreasonable to achieve that amount of money. And another thing we really want to do is we have to understand, basically, is that we have here you, and you want to work towards the goal. The goal. And throughout the way, you are obviously gonna get the dopamine from the process, but that can be challenging, especially when you are starting out. So what we want to do is set up little wins throughout the way that are gonna contribute to your big goal that we have. And we want to have our little dopamines attached to these little wins. For example, that is the easiest portrayed by the goal of fat loss. So for example, I'm 85 kilos right now and I want to achieve 75 kilos by summer, basically. And throughout the way, I just wouldn't focus on the 75 itself because it's gonna be a long ass journey to lose 10 kilos, especially when you are not just a beginner. And throughout the way, I want to set up little milestones along the way. And why I love this example because these are little 1 kg fat losses, 1 kg and 1 kg and 1 kg and 1 kg, and these are gonna contribute to your all of your weight loss of achieving this desired body weight and the desired body fat percentage. But these little wins are gonna give you the dopamine that you want, that your lizard brain craves. And it's also really important to, if we are going full on fat loss and then we achieve a 5 kg fat loss, then we don't give ourselves all of the dopamine that we will have, because obviously we are then gonna quit all of the things that have led to us, and we will regress back to even higher weight. The point is that we don't want to blow all of our dopamine too early, and not even when we achieve the goal. That will be really individual for every single endeavor of life, but for entrepreneurship that I have is gonna be, for example, we have you here and we want to achieve $1,000, and if you were to make a $250 a week, for example, which is pretty good, and then we are gonna go on social media and we are gonna talk about how fucking great we are gonna blow all of our dopamine, because our brain is gonna interpret it in a way that, okay, we have our basic needs of survival, which we tied ourselves to, and we have the social value because we talked about it, and people may even congratulate to us, but it's not necessary. But we achieve that dopamine by talking about it on social media, then what's the fucking point? And our brains are gonna stop because our brain is quite literally stupid. So we don't want to play all of our dopamine cards too early, and we don't want to blow it all at once. It must be spread out throughout a time frame, because that is gonna ensure that we do the fucking work consistently. And by the way, that's really important. For example, in investments, the big multiplier that is gonna bring you the success is time. For example, Warren Buffett achieved his wealth, like 90% of his wealth, after 50 years of investing. So the compound interest of time is really underappreciated, especially in entrepreneurship, because for obvious enough reasons, because businesses fail quickly, and you expect it to be instant. You expect the success to be instant, but it's not gonna be instant, right? We have to be realistic. We have to look at throughout a biggest time period. And by the way, if your business fails, you haven't completely regressed to zero, because you achieved the experience and the knowledge that you have to in order to make your next business successful, or your career successful, or anything. So failures are just temporary setbacks. Let's put it another way. So to just summarize it, you want to tie your dopamine and your ability to survive, basically, and your social value towards making your craft better every single day. Consistency is the key, but also cutting out every single instant dopamine things. Obviously, if you are trying to do the work, then you can still work out, you can still read, you can still meditate. If for whatever reason those give you dopamine, working out does for me. It gives me a lot of dopamine and have a huge motivation to do so. It's kind of my lizard brain, right? The point is to not have things that get you with a lot of dopamine instantly, because these are gonna prohibit your ability to do the work and focus and really dial in on the thing and become somewhat obsessed with it. It's kind of a cookie monster in these days to talk about obsessions, because obviously you want to be as healthy as possible. But if you have a certain type of addictive personality, I don't know the fucking psychology terms for this, but if you have it, why not just use it to your advantage? Because it's not gonna disappear like this. It's not gonna be an instant disappearance of your mental health problems. So why not just use it to your success, basically? I don't understand why you would do that. I hope this video was helpful. See you soon.